Sergio Perez's underwhelming performances for Red Bull this season have caused problems for the team. While Verstappen has been bringing in big points in the team's pursuit of a third straight constructors title, Perez has failed to finish in the top 5 for the past 12 races. Red Bull have now lost the lead of the Constructors' Championship and look set to lose second place as well to a resurgent Ferrari. If Verstappen were to hold out to win the driver's title, and Red Bull fell to third in the Constructors' title, then it would be the first time since 1983 that the team of the Drivers' Champion finished third or lower. With that in mind, Red Bull have warned Perez that he needs to sort out his performances, or there will be consequences. Today, I'll check that out, as well as the huge loss that Red Bull just suffered, so don't go anywhere. McLaren now lead the Constructors' Championship by 41 points, and they don't look like giving up that lead anytime soon. Red Bull had started the season as the strongest team by a huge margin, with Verstappen winning the opening 2 races by a huge distance. For those opening 6 races, Sergio Perez appeared to be on a good run of form as well. 4 podiums in 6 races was a good return for the Mexican driver. After a tough 2023, it appeared that Perez had refound his form and Red Bull were going to be unbeatable again. But as their performance advantage waned, Perez's form followed, and since the Miami Grand Prix, he's failed to secure a top 5 finish, leaving Red Bull relying on Max Verstappen's points haul to hold on to the Constructors' Championship. Max has over double the points of Perez at the moment, and that lead is only going to get bigger. The Mexican appeared to have turned a corner in Azerbaijan as he outclassed Max Verstappen and was on track to bag a podium until a late clash with Carlos Sainz. However, Perez was unable to replicate Verstappen's brilliance on the Singapore streets as he was eliminated in Q2 and trailed home in an underwhelming 10th place. Perez did manage to gain 3 places at the start to be in his eventual finishing position, but he was unable to overtake Williams rookie Franco Colapinto across the opening stint. The Red Bull driver relinquished a place to Sainz's Ferrari through the pit stop phase, and he was unable to pass Nico Hülkenberg's Haas during the closing exchanges. Perez's inability to make a pass on the Argentinian rookie or the experienced German was a disappointment for Red Bull, and his boss Christian Horner didn't hold back from letting him know. Checo, he was stuck around Hülkenberg for basically 30 laps, Horner recalled after the race. Yeah, Checo had a good first lap. He qualified out of position and then he just really struggled to overtake. He was struggling a little for traction in the areas where you want the traction out of turn 3 and onto the back straight. But yeah, that was what he could manage today. With McLaren again getting Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri on the podium, Horner has reiterated that Perez must improve to provide added support to his teammate. I think that we need to have 2 drivers firing on all cylinders, he admitted. Checo had a good weekend last weekend in Baku. He had a tough weekend this weekend. We need to put some weekends together where you can see where McLaren are putting 2 drivers on the podium. It's those big points that really make a difference. So, we need to make sure that Checo goes as far off the field as we can get it in terms of finding the right direction. This is far from the first time that Red Bull have publicly tried to apply pressure to Perez though. At this point, they've done it so many times that he probably doesn't take these comments seriously anymore. What is even more interesting about this situation is the fact that the Singapore Grand Prix was apparently Daniel Ricciardo's last race for VCARB. The Australian driver was brought into VCARB to offer Red Bull an alternative to Perez if they decided that the Mexican wasn't performing well enough. But despite Checo's underwhelming season, they declined to use Ricciardo. As the 2024 F1 season heads into a month-long break before the campaign resumes in Austin, Red Bull team principal Christian Horner said there will be a bigger picture assessment of the driver pool during this period, claiming Ricciardo was their banker if things went wrong for Perez. But it's not been a smooth season for Ricciardo either, who despite highlights like his P4 in the Miami sprint race, has scored just 12 points to teammate Tsunoda's 22. Daniel's had a reasonable season, but it hasn't been a stellar year, Horner continued when speaking to Sky F1. Now the question is, how good is Liam? And sometimes difficult decisions have to be made in order to get those answers. Now we'll sit down with all of those options available to us during this next 3-week gap. Red Bull's decision to ditch Ricciardo in exchange for Liam Lawson shows that they still aren't afraid to make a change when they think it will benefit the team. Perhaps the decision to bring Lawson in for the last 6 races of this season was made to give Red Bull a chance to assess Liam in case they need him to replace Perez for 2025. Nico Rosberg certainly seemed to think that Perez's place at Red Bull was under pressure again for next season. The 2016 Drivers' Champion was asked about where Perez is at the moment after Sunday's disappointment and said, "It's just the usual struggles that just continue compared with Max, who really was at his very best again this weekend. That just makes that gap so big because we know that the Red Bull car is having a difficult time, and this is the worst track for the Red Bull car in Singapore, and I think that's just the result there. But he really has to find some progress at some point, otherwise they're going to question him again for next year." It would be harsh to blame Perez entirely for the predicament he finds himself in the moment. Red Bull's car has taken a step backwards compared to their rivals this year. Red Bull have actually had issues with the car since last year's Singapore Grand Prix, something Perez has been keen to point out for a long time. The team recently went as far as apologizing to Perez for ignoring his concerns, saying that Max was just ignoring the car's problems because he could succeed in spite of them. While Perez did underperform in Singapore, he has argued that Red Bull could have been sharper on the pit wall and used an aggressive strategy as Ferrari did with signs to overcome slower cars. Asked whether he was disappointed not to make more progress, Perez replied, "In a way, yes. I think also the strategy, looking at it, when you see where Carlos finished, we probably lost an opportunity to make more progress and undercut more people. But once we went on a similar tyre age behind Nico, it was pretty much it." Blaming the strategy for his inability to pass a Haas and a Williams in a Red Bull isn't the best defense for Perez. His 10th place finish in Singapore is just another in a long list of poor performances this season, and they can't all be blamed on bad strategy. However, Perez's performances are far from Christian Horner's only problem. Red Bull's head of race strategy, Will Courtney, has decided to leave the team after 14 years in the role and join McLaren as sporting director. The move makes Courtney the third member of Red Bull's senior management to leave the team in the past 5 months, and is the latest development in an ongoing restructure at McLaren. McLaren team principal Andrea Stella said, "Will's experience, professionalism, and passion for motorsport make him the ideal candidate to lead our sporting function. We are now entering a key phase in our journey as a team, and we're confident that he will be a great addition to our strong leadership team as we strive to continue challenging for wins and championships." Will Courtney's decision to leave Red Bull follow those of Chief Technical Officer Adrian Newey and Sporting Director Jonathan Wheatley. Newey negotiated an early exit from his contract in April and is to join Aston Martin from March next year. Wheatley's departure was announced last month. He's joining the Audi team, which is currently racing as Sauber, as team principal in 2025. The departures at Red Bull come in the wake of allegations of sexual harassment and coercive controlling behavior made against team principal Christian Horner by a female employee. Horner has always denied the accusations, and 2 separate Red Bull internal inquiries have dismissed the complaint. Nonetheless, this is yet another exit which will hurt the Red Bull team. The more people leaving in senior positions, the less stable the team is, and the harder it will be for them to perform optimally. But what do you think of this latest issue for Red Bull? Would you be worried about the number of staff leaving the team? And what do you think of Red Bull putting pressure on Sergio Perez again? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.